Hello, good evening everyone here and everyone there. Thank you for joining me. Continuation of our session. This is the last session for this term. Let's do the prayers before we begin the teachings. Enda Buddha Dharma Sangha Aitere Yuje Enlightenment by virtue Adivendala Aishare Buddha Utruve Enda Buddha Dharma Sangha Aitere Yuje Enlightenment by virtue Adivendala Aishare Buddha Utruve Enda Buddha Dharma Sangha Aitere Yuje Enlightenment by virtue Adivendala Aishare Buddha Utruve. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a path of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a path of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. According the intelligence and predisposition of it, where the Yatanda Dharma Agrela Kama Egos. As you know, we are presently studying, please come in, studying the history of Buddhism in India and Tibet by a very famous Tibetan 13th century scholar called Buton, and we have had a number of sessions so far. Mainly he talks about the importance of the studying and preaching the Dharma, focus greatly on the merit of studying. Studying meaning reading and listening like we are doing, and how the study can greatly increase our knowledge and therefore understanding, and this can boost our experience, and also talks about the merit of those people who teach the Dharma, because teaching makes the actual practice, the theory of the teaching become very clearly elucidated. And then he's talking about the how this particularly merit of studying and teaching Mahayana teachings particularly. And then he looks at the general review of the entire Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist, Mahayana Buddhist literature. He examines what the word Dharma means, and also examines the doctrine of the Dharma from the point of view of the path and the result, and how to realize this. He then identifies the literary text or teachings given by the Buddha, as well as the Shastras, the commentaries given by Indian teachers. And consideration of the what is the character of the teachings, how it heals and benefits people, gives them knowledge to empower themselves to remedy the wrong views, and how teaching teaches them to correct and better and restore the good, eradicate the bad, and realize the fulfillment of this. And then he talked about the method of teaching the Dharma, and characteristics of a method of teaching the Dharma. And for that, it talks about the definition of the teacher who can teach the Dharma. So tonight we're going over the wisdom of the teacher. So wisdom of the teacher. So in this old translation, it's on page 76. So the wisdom of the teacher. A teacher must be well versed in the doctrine that is expounded. So it means that the teacher, in order to teach the subject, the teacher must be well versed, meaning becoming very familiar with the concepts and ideas to be able to explain to others. And not only that, the teacher should be skillful with regard to the way how he or she expresses himself, so that it is easily understandable in language people can relate to, preferably based on the experience of the teaching, not just a dry theory. And also experiences. Experience meaning that the experienced teacher has certain conduct of his or her that actually can relate to the pupils or disciples, so that the knowledge of the teacher that is transmitted become relatable to the teacher, to the student. And if a teacher is teaching only from head and books, you can see it is just a book, dry theory, dry only. Whereas if it came from based on the theory and texts and scriptures, but mainly from his or her own inwardly applied form of the teachings, experience, then it would have a great benefit, relevance to the would-be, to the students. So these are subjects that we're going to elaborate tonight. First is the teacher's knowledge of the subject to be taught. So here the subject is very broad, yeah? Subject, whatever is the subject in the Dharma. Of course, here we are talking tonight about because when we are teaching something out of the book, we mainly rely on the book as to something to relate to, and then elucidate on the basis of that. Teacher's knowledge of the subject to be taught, it is well if one knows thoroughly. That it means that if the teacher knows the subject very thoroughly, such as the three codes of scriptures, that is the Vinaya, Sutra, and Abhidharma. We need a teacher who knows exactly what part of the doctrine is it to be taught. So it shouldn't be confused with one with the other, vice versa. So subject matter should be taught distinctively and clearly for what it is. So the teacher must be well versed in relation to the words and sense of the meaning, and therefore the instructions that may relatable to people in different circumstances. Of course, different people are hearing the teachings from their own point of view, but if the teacher communicates with the correct kind of terminology and analogies, then the instructions will be good, relevant to the students. But that has to be based on scripture, preferably. Scripture means that should be something that is traceable to the sources of the scriptures, but at the same time should be logical. Even though it's a very, very scripturally nice sounding, but if it's not logical, then it's not so much. So therefore, the scriptural authority almost helps the teacher to not having to teach things out of his head, but teaching on the basis of the scripture. But he should be able to use a logical rationale to explain that to people. Such a teacher is one who's able to clear all the doubts of the pupils. So this subject is mainly saying that teachers should be well versed in the subject, so that students are not with more confusion than they walked in, but more clarity and more clarification on the subject. Second is skill and means of verbal expression. So the teacher should have a particular way to express verbally, because mainly it's a verbal. It's oral teachings has to be verbal. Maybe some physical expressions would help. But here, skill in the way of expressing oneself consists of using grammatically correct speech. So meaning the person must be very well versed in the language in which the subject is taught, and in which the concepts and phrase and terminology must be something appropriate. Observing 3 rules of verbal connection. What are the 3 rules? Accordance with the sources. So firstly, it has to be something traceable to the sources from which it's taught. Proportion in the compass of the teaching. So it should be very much within the proportionately accurate, not too verbose, not too vague, and not too patchy. So it has to be correct proportion. And precision in regards to the contents. Yeah, therefore, it should be clear and the meaningful to which actually elucidate the contents of the text. And finally, sweet, an agreeable language. So meaning the person must have a voice. And that's why we try to have all these gadgets, so that it's not too loud, not too coarse, or not too soft. These days we are mainly relying on technology, and I know we are so well supported here in regard to this. Your work so hard to make even the most soft-spoken teacher's words is very beautifully audible. And agreeable language, through which one is able to give pleasure to others. So they say well-spoken, because well-spoken doesn't mean the person speaks conceptually nice words, but it is not agreeable to the listener's ear. So it has to be very, very pleasurable to listen. They say that means please drink the nectar of words. It should be like a person listening to the Dharma makes themselves feel very, very appropriate and proper and gladdened by what they're hearing. As it is stated in the Sutra Alankara. Sutra Alankara is one of the writings by Asanga. Sutra Alankara means sutra, Alankara means ornament. Is ornamentness ornament. It means it really beautifies the sutra. Sutras are discourses, and they're often very heavily coded. And if there is no ornamentation, meaning very beautifully explained. So Sutra Alankara is a very metered text. in that text, it gives following qualities of what is a agreeable, pleasant to listen to. Very eloquent through voice and style. So the person must be very, very articulate in a form of language itself is very poetic, very, very eloquent, and the style. Indicating, analyzing, indicating meaning showing, that makes people to see things. And as well as analyzing meaning makes themselves to reason as when they're pointed to, and they actually makes them to analyze. And as a result of doing that, clear their doubts, clear their indecisions. Communicating repeatedly, the teacher should not be repetitive, but he should be repeat in a sense. It's not same thing, monotonous repeating, but communicating repeatedly, meaning one is being able to stress and being able to reiterate through the delivery for those that understand a brief indication. Because if you just mainly mention the topic and that then doesn't elaborate, people wouldn't understand. And so it has to be elaborated by using the phrase, terminology, definition, analogies, types, and so on. And those that need a description in detail. Often people want more detail than the brief mention of things. The teaching of Buddha is pure as regards to three aspects, and is known to be free from following 8 defects. If the teaching delivered by the teacher is good, then it would have to be free from the following 8 defects. And they are indolence. If the teacher is teaching lazily and not really, indolence means doesn't want to elaborate, couldn't be bothered giving the detail, couldn't be bothered giving the sources, barely mention, wouldn't elaborate, and that would be like a indolent. And unclear speech, If the speech is not very clear, that's one of the defects. And inappropriate speech, sometimes the speech is not proper for whatever reasons. It's improper in terms of the maybe the way it was taught, where it was explained. It shouldn't be inappropriate. And want of certainty, impossibility to clear doubt. There's instead of being able to, there's no possibility of clearing doubt. It clears more doubts, but then it clarifies the doubts. So the teaching shouldn't be confusing. That's what it means. It shouldn't be confusing. It should be free of doubt. To confirm the absence of such, to confirm the absence of such lassitude and concealment of the truth. Such are the defects in speech. So these are the 8 defects in the way the expression of the teaching should try to avoid. These 8 teachings of the Buddha, since possess none of them, is superior to all the other doctrines. Now, if one very sticks with the authoritative sources and the right and correct rational reasoning, then one couldn't fail, because the subject itself is all of those qualities. Buddha's teaching doesn't have any of these defects. As shows in this verse, the teaching must be free from 8 defects just mentioned, and consequently pure. Pure refers to being viewed from 3 points of view. Pure, meaning teaching should be pure from 3 points of view. It says in the Vakya Yukti, 20 methods of communicating the doctrine, such as which act as antidotes against 11 defects in speech, are to be considered as follows. So there are 20. These 20 are mentioned. There's 20 methods of communicating the doctrine. So this is very good for people who want to teach So first is teaching at due time. Teaching should be timely. This is an antidote against that defect, which consists in preaching into a person who by his immoral conduct is unworthy of being taught. So if teaching shouldn't be taught to somebody who's not worthy. So that's talking about you shouldn't impose certain teachings to people who's beyond their ability to adhere to the required conduct. This method is observed by teaching only after having become convinced that the hearer really wishes to study and is worthy to receive the instructions. So basically, one shouldn't accept inappropriate candidates. It's correct timing. My own means of teaching and studying are defective as regards this first method. They are therefore actually value and do not attain their aim. This is some kind of admission by Buton as an author. Second is the teaching accurately by admitting no carelessness in speech. So one should be very careful in giving the teaching. This method is directed against the defect of incompleteness. So there's each of these 20 qualities. Methods of teaching is to remedy the possible faults. So those three, those two, and then the following three methods are antidote against the defect of broken and uninterrupted speech. So the third, fourth, and fifth, which are about to be listed, are antidote against defect of broken and uninterrupted speech. Broken means a person says something and then it doesn't really it doesn't follow, and then something else comes that's totally incoherent with what was being said. So how do you remedy that? Teaching in regular order. So you should stick with the order of things. For instance, if one is talking about 6 perfections, one should teach those 6 in the order they are taught. And then if there's any 4 types or 3 types of the perfection of generosity, they should be taught in the order. So the teaching in regular order, by beginning with the communication of subject which are, as regards time, are to be mentioned first, namely charity or high sublime matters. So it's talking about the man talking about need to practice charity, generosity, and why it is taught, because everybody wants to receive gifts. And nobody will reject gifts. And particularly, everybody has something to give, for instance. So therefore, talking about giving and charity is relevant and relatable by everyone. You can't talk about, morality too early, too quickly, without talking about concerning something like generosity. Morality on its own couldn't be discussed because it becomes out of context. Now, when you talk about giving, and the people know what's the ethics of giving, then the morality of giving will make sense. So it's talking about the regular, how the order should be proper. So, fourth is teaching in due connection, with a view to the sutra that is to be explained, and replying to the awkward questions of opponents. So teaching should be connected, related to these questions, or if someone asks a question, the teaching regarding to the question should be relevant to the questions. Fifth is teaching with regard for one's hearer by giving instruction in accordance with the questions. Instruction in the form of one categorical answer, etc. The methods which act against, so that's those 3. Then the method which acts against the defect of unintelligible speech. So in order to avoid the unintelligible speech, are likewise 3 in number. So in order to avoid the unintelligible speech, what should you do? Causing delight to those that are devoted to the teaching, So one should be able to say, explain the teaching that actually gives us relevant to the point, to the nest of the person that actually delights them. And therefore, it's not unintelligible, it's very intelligibly delivered. Arousing the desire to study in those that first meet the doctrine and are hostile to it, So the teaching should be given that it instills faith and interest to those who have faith and even those who are hostile to the teachings. So the teaching should be should not be counteractive to the people who are hostile to the teaching, but teaching should solely tame those who are hostile to it. And those people who really want to desire the teaching, you should be able to tailor the teaching that fulfills their desire and wishes. And the 8th is giving satisfaction to those that are on the way towards apprehension, but are still full of doubt. So the teaching should be that gives satisfaction. I suppose this mainly depends on the command of the realization of the teacher's experience, more so than his or her familiarity with the subject matter itself. So that's that. The defects in speech that consists in disregard for the doctrine has the two following antidotes. Because disregard for the doctrine, So in order to avoid a speech that disregard the teachings, number 9, not speaking so as to gratify those that lead sinful lives and are therefore unworthy of being pleased. So one shouldn't try to water down the teaching to those people who are very, very negative nature. 10, not abusing others who through this become depressed. An antidote against the effect of incorrect speech. So not abusing others, meaning you shouldn't be giving teachings that may depress people and that make it worse than they came in through whatever the teaching is. So the antidote that is the antidote against the defect of incorrect speech is having recourse to logic in never being in conflict with the modus of the right cognition. So this means in order that your teaching is an incorrect speech, you should stick with the logic and being logic and rational. That speech in defect, which consists in communicating matter of profound meaning to a pupil of weak intellectual faculties, unable to comprehend, understand, is avoided by. So there are some subjects, many subjects, in fact, that people can't comprehend, goes above the head, they call it. For that, in order to not lose them as your audience, you should do this gradual progress from the preceding to the following and then come, meaning so you should teach them gradually. So certain subjects should not be raised too early to those who are not familiar with that. So everything should come in order. Precision, an antidote against the defect of distraction. So if your teaching is very precise, you can capture the attentive heedfulness of the listener by withholding from excursus on other subjects. So if you are focusing on one very topic, then if you will not lose them. Otherwise, if you have many subjects jumble on top of another, it will confuse. So precision shouldn't be compromised. Dependent on the doctrine that is being in harmony with the teaching of virtue, this is the antidote against the defect communicating useless theories. One should say something that is really like a medicine. It really hits on the nail, so to speak. So that you do not communicate useless theories and go all the way out of context. So try to become very much coherent. And 15, in accordance with the circle of adherents whoever there might be, an antidote against ill-suited speech. So those are first 15. The remaining 5 methods, act against the defect of teaching in being at the same time possessed of sinful thoughts. So meaning the intention of the person, if they have bad such thoughts, the teaching should remedy those bad intention which they might be there. As to the latter, such may be of 3 kinds, namely the consideration of oneself to be virtuous and trustworthy, the desire of being honored and praised, and envy with regard to the merit of others. So these are, if such attitudes, poisonous, sinful attitudes are in the mind, they are to be remedied. The first of these has 3 remedies. Mind full of love. So the teaching, when you teach the teaching with love and very, very wanting the others to be benefited by it, so that can greatly tame the person's the negative thoughts. Mind full of desire to help. You have to really be willing to help up to the other. And the third, mind full of compassion, which manifest themselves in the desire for the others to be happy, dispassionate, and free from suffering otherwise, with regard to the virtues and the indifferent, by words full of love, etc., respectively. And in a third way, by wishing others to attain nirvana, to attain full knowledge of the path. You actually have to have these high, lofty goals for them to gain liberation and enlightenment. You shouldn't just teach something to please them on the basis of now, but with no higher purposes. So whatever you need to say in order to make them feel loved or compassionate too, but your intention should be to lead them to that highest goal of reaching nirvana. And to understand completely the meaning of that which is to be taught. The antidote against sinful thoughts, the second kind, is not to look for profit, honor, and praise. This is talking about if the teacher seems to be more interested to gain material benefit, praise, honor, and saying that if he doesn't get this much profit or this much, if his main focus is on material benefit and fame and respect, and as a way to use his teaching to materially benefit him. So one should not look for such things. And the antidote for that is not to be inclined to arrogance and depreciation of others. That is to abandon the desire of being regarded as trustworthy and to become free from envy. Of these 20 methods, each group of 5 respectively shows first how for those whose sake, in what form, and by what kind of teacher the doctrine is to be communicated, or otherwise course of teaching, its work, quality of the speech, and those of the speaker. To these 20 methods and to avoid 11 defects in speech is to be skillful in the way of expressing oneself. So what was covered in that section was that the very purpose of giving the teaching is that it should adhere to these 20 methods as closely as possible. If you do that, then any of the 11 defects will be minimized, and that will therefore you be able to express the teaching appropriately. So then next is conduct and character of the teachers and pupils. So this means, so if the teaching, this is the teaching methods, maybe the students are student now, but teachers a teacher now, but in the future those very students will have to adhere those teachings, will have to adopt those teaching methods. And so therefore, in the meantime, how should a teacher and the disciple, student, what should their conduct should be? What kind of characters we should try to have to be a proper teacher and proper students. It's not just one should be proper, not the other. Both has mutual responsibility to fit in the properness of the teacher and properness of the disciples. Teacher must be experienced as concerns his own behavior in order to be revered as one that is virtuous in regard to the three media, and must otherwise perfectly know the natural constitution of his pupils, namely their faculties, characters, inclinations. So this is talking about the teacher's ability to almost size or weigh up the knowledge and predisposition of the students. For only by teaching in harmony with such will he attain his aim. Meaning, only by knowing the level of the aptitude and predisposition and interest, then he or she will be able to deliver the teaching to his audience. It is said in the Dasha Chakra Shiti Garbha Sutra, whirling with feeble faculties and indolent, who is not keen upon the study of two vehicles, will never come to master teaching of Mahayana, for he is not worthy of it. And further on, in the same way, if the adherents of the Shravaka vehicle, unworthy of the Mahayana, great one, come to hear the teachings of the latter, they will become confused, adhere to nihilistic views, and fall into evil births. For this reason, you must teach the doctrine only after having examined the faculties of hearers. So this is talking about if you are giving specific teachings, unlike this subject is mainly like history. If you're talking specific teachings, then you have to make sure, examine get to know the candidates or the students. Again, it is not proper to preach Hinayanistic doctrine to one that is worthy of great vehicle. Yeah, people who really are kind of the aptitude, wanted to practice something for themselves and maybe to attain personal nirvana. And if that's that's what the kind of aptitude of the person, you cannot teach the Mahayana teachings. And speak not of matters sublime and profound meaning to the one adherents of small vehicles. So you shouldn't be talking about high, lofty, profound view and emptiness and stuff like that, because it will just go nowhere. And show all these passages through thorough knowledge of the people's behavior or characters needed. So it's talking about really the teacher must tailor the teachings according to the students and their interests, their level of intelligence, and not just pour out all the teachings to the students who may not be ready for it. You shouldn't say unworthy of it, but maybe that it's not worthy of it. So that's why in the proper study classes they have year 1, year 2, or whatever the case might be. They have so they will not go into certain topics until they have done some topics, And then second is the love and compassion towards the pupils. It's probably more important than other qualities. So here, love and compassion towards pupils. Teacher must be endowed with that quintessence of great commiseration, which consists of the desire to secure supreme enlightenment for all living beings. For if not, to such an extent, at least of the commiseration in teaching without looking to profit or out of mere wish that the meaning of the subject which is taught might be perfectly understood and be of use to the hearer. By virtue of this commiseration, one's teaching will attain its aim. It is said in Sutra Lankara, the powerful ones with joyful heart ever and anon give away their lives and property which are hard to obtain and of no real value, for the sake of suffering living beings, thus preparing the highest form of charity. How much more will they do so in regard to highest doctrine, which administer help to all that lives, always and in every way is easy to obtain, increase the more you grant of it, never become exhausted. Now, if the teaching has not such a character, great sin will be committed, namely that of trading with the doctrine. We read in the Manjushri Vikarana Parivarta, if the doctrine is expounded, but commiseration with regard to people is wanting, it will be an action of the evil one. And if a teacher, being himself greatly learned and conceals part of the doctrine for fear that others should come to know them, this will be like an action of the evil. Santindra Mochana says that those that teach that highest doctrine out of desire of gain, having got their wishes fulfilled, take gain and gain. Those infatuated beings, though they are in possession of the invaluable jewels of the doctrine, roam about as if they are beggars. Now come to the correct methods of the teaching. By endurance, that is by not being liable to depression as regards the long, wearisome time of teaching. So, meaning that the teacher shouldn't show sort of weariness of not really wanting to do, but has to do type of attitudes. With regards to weariness, time of teaching, and difficulty of the task, by patiently entering upon all the questions of the pupils, and by resisting the challenges of adversaries, in being able to answer them duly, the teacher will be of real help to his hearers. It is said, likewise, that tolerance with regard to the faults made by pupils is needed. Teachers should be very tolerant, particularly if he teaches tolerance, but himself shows no sign of tolerance, then he cannot teach tolerance. However articulate he is on the theory and analogies and definition of the subjects of tolerance, but if he has to have those qualities, because tolerance with regard to the faults made by students have lots of flaws, lot of faults, lot of problems, and the teacher must have the incredible ability to tolerate them. This may be fulfilled if one is possessed of that supernatural insight through which one comes to know the amount of help that is to be administered to others. One has to know, this is the very reason I need to teach. If this insight is wanting, one must abstain from preaching to those that are not devoted to doctrine, and those who wear insignia and following the 5 categories of person, the teaching to whom prohibited by Vinaya. Such persons will always possess opposed to teaching that humiliates them, become full of passion and hatred. Consequently, preaching and study of doctrine that has such an unfavorable result cannot be of help for the attainment of felicity and salvation. From all this, we draw a conclusion that if the doctrine is communicated by a teacher, that proves perfect with regard to all that has been said. The latter will be agreeable to the hearers and perfectly attain his aim. As Sutra Alankara says, accordingly, the Bodhisattva being wise, free from lassitude, full of a compassion, greatly renowned for the virtuous behavior and a good orator, shines by the luster of his teaching amongst all living beings as if he were the sun. So this is talking about the teacher has to have these qualities. Through that, then he's not only he's wise, but also he's free from lassitude. He's full of compassion and able to communicate very well. So that's the many methods, teaching methods of the teacher. Second is the means of teaching. In the Abhidharma Samuccaya, 14, or from another point of view, 6 media of teachings are mentioned. So meaning how the teacher should teach. There are 14 or 6. How is the explanation sacred text to be conducted? That's the question. Answer, in manner in which the sutras have been exposed by Buddha, namely by communicating. First, subject that must be fully apprehended, the truth of phenomena existence. Two, the true character of the impermanence. One has to talk about the impermanence of phenomena. Three, the factors conducive to full apprehension, pure morality, etc. Fourth, complete apprehension itself, enlightenment of the right philosophy view. Five, its final result, nirvana. Six, the divine wisdom attribute one has attained it. The 14 media of the teachings are mediums of abridged explanation. Sometimes you have to teach in a very abridged version. Second is medium of concentration of teaching upon one subject. Another medium is focusing on the one subject and make sure that is very, very made clear. Medium of taking recourse to minor details. Sometimes you need to really go in very details. So that is the one medium that will benefit people. Fourth is medium of communicating the different degrees of perfection, each of which respectively, the foundation, the higher, and then still higher virtues. Meaning talking about whatever you talk about, how the first one functions as a foundation for the second one for the third, and so on. So you should be able to, the degrees of perfection, for instance, degrees of perfection. For instance, if you first talk about giving material gifts, first talk about encouraging people to give material things. Then second is emotional sort of support, So if you don't give material things, you can't attract people to listen to you give emotional support. So you can see the order. Unless you make people smile by giving something, they wouldn't listen to your advice. So first you need some kind of treat, like the dog. You just lead the dog and then they'll do the tricks. Likewise, you have to first do something that is appropriate and then lead them to the next level. Fifth is medium exclusion. Exclusion means of all that does not come under the category in question. So some topics or things should be totally excluded in mentioning, because it is not in the category of question on the subject. Sixth is medium of changing the meaning of ordinary words into termini technici. I don't know what it means. Medium of changing the meaning. The words, by using different words, the meaning may be elucidated. Seventh is medium of demonstrating matters worldly and unworldly with regard to each other. So you need to distinguish between mundane and super-mundane things. Eighth, medium of indicating the individual to whom one intends to teach. So indicating meaning medium of showing, pointing, a kind of something that is relevant to the individual. Ninth, medium of analysis of the stuff by cordilemas, etc. 10th, the medium of 6 modes. 11th, medium of enlarging upon the full apprehension of the truth. 12th, the medium of showing proper of each word taken separately to indicate the idea and the importance if word is omitted of the others to render the contents intelligible. 13th, medium of repeated teachings. Sometimes you have to repeat a few times, then that helps people. 14th is medium of evident proofs. So you have to show some clear examples to validate the point. Some works explain subjects in question by indicating the aim, some the subject matter in a abridged form and the meaning of the words, others by demonstrating the general meaning and details. A certain teacher of Chimpa tribe, in his turn, distinguishes, demonstrating of the meaning, 1. 2. Explanation of the verbal part of the text. 3. Complete ascertainment with regard to both. Of these first, one first gives a dry, brief account of a subject in text, and then true meaning of ascertained through the communication of the sources and the aim of composition, and then of its subject matter. Through all this, the student will get the clear aspect of the meaning of the text. These are quite a lot of these things are really taken care by modern teaching methods, illustration, charts, and diagrams, and the modern teaching methods have gone a lot to that. Buddhism could do a lot. If you use the modern teaching methods, people will definitely appreciate. Having become acquainted with principal points by overlooking all the contents of the text, one has to explain the doctrine that is made a subject of study. By removing all the doubtful points, then enter upon an investigation of the parts of spoken directly or indirectly. In this way, the student will be able to understand completely the verbal part of the text. 3. Although in such a way the meaning of text studied will come to be thoroughly apprehended, nevertheless, some objection from the part of the opponent who has not been refuted may be met with, as, for instance, in that which has been said, there occurs such and such contradiction to tautology and absence of due connection. Having in view an ignorant opponent who thinks so, one ought to be ready to give him a due answer, which expels his thoughts, and then by taking recourse to scripture and logic to remove completely every suspicion as to opponent's objection being founded. We read in the Vakyayukti, those that communicate the meaning of the sutras must explain that it having its view, the aim, the contents and abridged form, the meaning of the words, connection between the parts, the objection which may be met, and reply given to such. The two last points are to be viewed together in order that one may know how to give a good reply. Having first come to know the aim of sutras, he that is devoted to the study and observation of this doctrine must indicate their aim. As such is to be understood from the brief indication of contents. One must have such that is demonstrate the body of the discourse or an exegetical treatise, the words and the sense, or otherwise subject matter condensed. The latter is in its turn apprehend through the knowledge of the precise meaning of each word. Therefore, on the basis of the four methods of elucidating the meaning of a word, one has to explain so as to remove all doubt, and after having taken into consideration of all the questions and refutations. Otherwise, one may explain the meaning of the words by taking recourse to synonyms, homonyms, or to one of that many meanings of a word by changing ordinary words into termini technici, or by changing the word itself by omitting, for instance, negative particles, etc. Moreover, the Vakyayukti says the meaning of words may be apprehended in four ways, namely by meaning of the synonyms, definitions, etymology, and for the varieties of the characters of ideas expressed by such and such word. Synonyms are other names given to the same object. Definition is the indication of the meaning in which the word is used, and the etymology, that of the reason for using them in the sense that is applied to it. Some consider that the etymology of a word does not explain its meaning, but this is not correct, because according to Prishtaba, when a word is explained, this can be done in 8 different ways. In due connection is the accordance between the preceding and the following, as concerns the meaning and the order of the words. By it we know that our speech is not contrary to the order in which one word is to follow the other in regard to the meaning. The absence of contradiction with regard to logic and disagreement between the preceding and the following is to be known from the objection that are made and answers given in return. Therefore, having always in view an opponent who attacks the words and sense, one must explain so as to render the latter completely certain and incontrovertible. Character of the teachings. One must teach having in view the students, A. Second, aim. 3, the manner of conducting the teaching. First is the character of teaching as concerns the students. To students possessed of acute, mediocre, and weak intellectual faculties, one must respectively explain briefly, moderately, and detail. Because talking about acute student is brief, mediocre is moderate, and those people who are weak intellectual, in detail, just as we have 3 kinds of sutras: the extensive, the intermediate, and the brief. In accordance with the spiritual family to which student belongs to, one has to teach Mahayanistic or Hinayanist doctrine. And with regard to the different wishes of the pupils, that which proves to be suitable. It's said in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, 1, if they entreat thee to grant the gift of doctrine, thy first reply must be, I have not studied enough. Which many people do. Many people, teachers says, no, I haven't studied the subject. There's 2, you are all wise, greatly learned. How dare I speak in the presence of such illustrious persons? So art thou to say. So second is modest question is how can I teach in front of so many learned persons? I'm the least suitable person to teach. And 3, never speak at once, but only when thou seest that the hearer is worthy. But if thou knowest that teach, even if they do not pray thee to do so. 4th, if thou should perceive amongst thy hearers many that are of immoral conduct, do not preach to them abstinence, but sing the praise of charity. 5, if there are the others with scant desire, but have the pure morality, arouse in thee the thoughts full of love and speak of abstinence. 6, if those with sinful desire be few, the virtues are great in number, then take thou part of the latter and sing the praise of pure morality. So it's talking about tailoring the teaching according to people's level of intelligence, conduct, and wisdom. Character of teaching as regard the aim. One must give a precise definition of the special aim of the teaching that is to be attained, and teach so as to lead to the attainment of this aim. For instance, when we are talking about learning the history of Buddhism in India and in Tibet, it's not really, the aim is not really to learn the history of Buddhism or in India or Tibet, but knowing what is Buddhism. Because when you say the aim of the teaching is teaching what is Buddhism that is so special about, then people become more interested in the history of it. But if they don't know what is so important, what is Buddhism, then what's the talking about history is all relevant. So that's why regards to the aim of it, because that's why Buton, who wrote his book as a history of Buddhism, hasn't said anything about history yet. He keeps talking about the merit of listening and teaching and talking what is the teaching and who should be teacher, who should be student, and what are the methods of teaching and all of that. So that shows how much he is doing what he's saying. He's practicing what he's preaching, because he's not talking about history at all. He's talking about the merit of studying and listening and what are the teachings and what should be the methods of delivery of teachings and so on. And then the procedure of teaching. Here we have to distinguish preparation, the teaching itself, the conclusion. So this is talking about kind of how to teach, how to teach. You have to have a preparation, and then the teaching that you have done preparation for, and then you teach that, and then there is a conclusion. The preparation is the teacher must take 4 arrangements, make 4 due arrangements. Address the prayer to the 3 jewels. So the very beginning of informal Buddhist teaching, you always take refuge in the triple gem. So it says in the teaching, if you really want to teach Dharma, you should always take refuge in the Triple Gem. Having banished the evil one by means of charm, especially prescribed for this purpose. So traditional usually recite the Heart Sutra. They recite always the Heart Sutra in order to banish all the obstacles, or maybe some more elaborate rituals to secure the room or to secure the place, like all the rooms are locked and all the exit marks are there, and so everybody's safe, and all those preparation. So here, of course, a fire, exit, danger, telling where you should assemble, all these things are modern preparation teaching, having banished the evil ones by means of you can't have noisy things happening while the teaching is going on, for instance. But here talk about more like you should banish the evil ones, like demons and evil spirits and all of that, and manifest with great love with regard to all his hearers. So teacher must meditate not just meditate on loving kindness, but stay in the meditation of loving kindness while giving the teaching. So he should be teaching within the meditative state of loving kindness as the best preparation. It is said in the Sadharma Pundarika, this is White Lotus Sutra, teacher, when he thinks that the time is come, is to enter in a schoolhouse, and having closed the door and taking a review of the doctrine in all its parts, is to teach with a mind free from dismay. The sage, always good-tempered and sitting at ease, preaches the doctrine after having erected a spacious seat in a clean and agreeable spot. So I was talking about the agreeable, very beautifully made seat, and where everybody sits, where the teacher sits, and where the Buddhas are there, and everything is well prepared, nice. All this kind of ambience you talk about. Dharma teaching ambience should be created. That's why the place like this is consecrated, so that it is all this kind of what is mentioned here is done in proper space and proper time and proper manner of showing respect to the Triple Gem and so on. He dresses himself in a clean religious robe, well dyed with exquisite colors, talking about put on a black mantle and spacious skirt. I don't know, spacious skirt. He's talking about the lower robe, I think. Then on seat, a footstool covered with the diverse garments, beast seats himself, and having well washed his feet, rises up, anoints head and faces, and there sitting on the preacher's seat, to the people that have assembled and are full of attention, he is to deliver diverse sermons for monks, for nuns, for the devotees of laymen, male and female, and likewise for kings and princes. Teacher must always be free from envy and teach with sweet voice and then diverse subject. He must reject all indolence and never be subjected to lassitude, become free from uneasiness and meditate on the power of love, which he exercises with regard to his hearers. By day and by night is he to teach, to preach the highest of the doctrine in form of millions of diverse parables, to gladden and to gratify the hearers, but never to desire anything for himself in return, neither of food or beverage or garments or couch or seat or religious robe, not even a remedy if he is ill, dare he think and accept such as from his hearers. Other must be his thoughts. May I and all these living beings attain enlightenment, to teach the doctrine in order to help mankind. This is the sole foundation of my happiness. Moreover, we read in the Sagaramati Pariparacha Sutra, Kam Shamavati, Sorry, this is the Sanskrit version. All the bonds of the demons are removed. All the antagonists are vanquished. We are released from the chain of evil ones and stamped with the seal of the Buddha, and all the devils are annihilated. May all the words of Mara vanish by virtue of the perfect purity of immovable ones. Such, O Sagaramati, are the words that vanquish the evil one, to remove all defilements. He that expounds the doctrine must duly recite them, and then, having occupied the preacher's seat, let his thoughts full of love which manifest themselves in desire to secure supreme enlightenment extend over all the circles of hearers. He must think of himself as the physician of the doctrine. So that's this talking about attitudes of the teacher, that he should be really full of loving kindness and compassion for all then he should take the role of a physician, as if for a remedy of those that are to study as a patient. So see the students as a patient who need to study Dharma in order to cure themselves, and of the Buddha as of the highest of living beings. Moreover, he has to consider that the rules of the doctrine must be established so as to have a long existence. Yeah, his intention should be so that the teachings continue to exist for a long period of time for the future, and not just for the sake of for the actual audience, but for the furtherance of the teaching into long time. Now he teaches the doctrine, having first uttered the charm, which has been mentioned. Charm usually is the special dharani or the Heart Sutra. Evil one and all his hosts will not dare to approach him. But if you meditate on compassion, you don't have to recite very kind of esoteric soundings, mantras, or even Heart Sutra. If your loving kindness is the most important motivation from the teacher, so there's no evil ones are there to have the direct hostility or aggression towards, because loving kindness is the antidote to the most impoverished sentient beings. So the evil one and his soul will not dare to approach him in order to divest him from teaching within the reach of 100 miles, and those who will chance to come near will not be able to make any disturbance. They will be kept out of the fence. So lock the gate, so to speak. And the teacher must be of morally pure, of virtuous behavior, outwardly clean and neatly dressed. It's talking about how presentable teacher ought to be. That is according to the respect to the very teachings. The presentation, that's talking about how one should present oneself. So this is very much focusing on the glory of the teaching. Is so special. The teaching is such a medicine. In order for the medicine, when you see your doctor, if he's not wearing his uniform, it looks bit. But if he's wearing his uniform properly, it looks very good. With his stethoscope here, and with the nurses next to him carrying a notepad, and he's properly dressed. It is almost like a command of healing is there already. It's like that. Is that you need to respect your profession or your occupation as a Dharma deliverer. Then next is the teaching by itself. Now, chief foundation of teaching must be 6 in number, corresponding to the 6 transcendent virtues. So these are 6 parameters. It says, delivering the words and meaning according to one's own conception. So you need to be very, very careful in delivering words. That words and meaning you explain is like a gift that excels all other gifts. And so it fits with the conception, the ideas, meanings, and this gift of Dharma is the charity. That's the first. Suppressing the sinful acts of 3 media, so meaning one needs to suppress all kinds of 3 improper intentions or behavior that are contradictory to the teachings, not only during the teaching, but as a code of conduct oneself. Because if one does that, then it is the correct ethic of generosity. Your generosity of teaching is bound by the ethics of the teaching, where your intention is not to receive any profit, gain, or fame, or respect, but simply to heal the suffering and wounds of sentient beings. And may the Dharma be the medicine that you dispense. So if you have these attitudes, then, of course, you are suppressing the sinful acts of desire, hate, and ignorance. And third is enduring heat, cold, and other odds, meaning during the teaching, whether it's early, whether it's late, whether it's weekly, whether it's hour after hour, one should not mind the heat, one should not mind the cold, or whatever it is. So that's being able to endure the hardships and physical, emotional, whatever you have to risk, you should be aware that is patience. That is actually patience. So practicing. And this also corresponds to the students too. Students also giving their time and driving all the way, or putting aside everything and listening to the teaching through the Zoom and those things. That is your generosity. And so every teacher and student could be practicing the 6 paramitas if they follow these 6 codes. And the fourth is perseverance in teaching, meaning that you are joyfully, delightfully delivering the teaching, not as a job, but as a service. But the best among best you can do is teach. You're not missing something while teaching. You're not showing as if you have to do, otherwise no one is there to do, that kind of. But you are so delighted as you couldn't think of being anywhere but this. That kind of right energy you must show. Then you are right, and the energy itself will support the students. Then the fifth is concentration of the mind upon the subject of the latter. Yeah, the subject on which the teaching is taught, his or her concentration should be totally on the teaching, on the subject. Not something else, not tomorrow, not what he's doing tomorrow or later, and keep looking at his watch, always like that, and not really focusing. So if one is concentrating the mind on the topic, then that is meditation in itself. And then that's why when we say at the beginning, by virtue of listening and the like, may I reach Buddhahood. The listening that you do is generosity. The correct conduct of listening is the morality. Being patient with the sitting through and feeling tired or sleepy, nevertheless, but sitting with this kind of diligence and so on. All of these constitute practice of the Dharma itself. May I gain Buddhahood to aid all beings. So this is the lofty intention. So you're not listening for the sake of learning history of Buddhism. You're listening for the sake of liberating sentient beings from samsara. So this is what it's all. Sixth is analysis in regard to the words and sense as their contradiction and or right connection. So your mind should be discerning, rationalizing. You should try to make the connections by your own rational, by discriminating awareness, which is the wisdom. So those are the six foundation of teaching. That's why we say the prayer. In the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment reach, by virtue of giving and the like. Or giving and the like is the teacher. Listening and the like is the student. May we reach Buddhahood to aid all beings. So that's why we say those, in order that we are able to use the very time that you sit and listen as a practice of the 6 paramita. In connection with this, the Indian teacher Haribhadra says, harmony with six transcendent virtues attained by granting the gift of the doctrine. Yeah, you are giving attention. You're giving your time, People are so time poor to learn, to do many things. For you to have every Thursday evening, or whatever, whenever you do, and this is charity. This is you are dedicating your hour each week to do this, and this is a granting gift to respect to the Buddha. When we listen to teaching, we are taking refuge in the Triple Gem. We renew our refuge in the Dharma. We are rebonding with the fellow Sangha members, and so on. So that is the first. Becoming free from thoughts the characteristic. One is free from the thoughts of mean-mindedness, of small-mindedness, of what's in it for me tonight. Is it interesting for me? Is it worth staying any longer? Oh, I got that to do. If you have those kind of things, of course, but instead you really are focusing, becoming free of such distraction and dullness and doubt and those things, you know. So that's the enduring harsh words from those with whom one chances to meet. So even during the teaching, maybe some of the teaching looks like really hitting on the nail of you. You didn't want to hear that, yet it came directly to you, and you are just being patient. Instead of taking too personally, saying that is directly hurting us, but seeing, wow, this teaching is really what I need to hear, you know, even though it's not so palatable, not so easy to hear. But this is probably what the bitter sweetness, you know. The real teaching, I need to hear this. So therefore, being patient with the teaching's kind of directness or like that, this is already patience, you know. Arousing desire to study. So when you're there, your mind is, oh, I really want to know more of this. This is so good, and so your energy is increased, inspired by listening and reading, then discouraged by it. So that's perfect. That's very good diligence. Bringing about the concentration of mind to a degree which cannot be attained if one is follower of the other vehicle. So I mean, you are able to focus. If you're not distracted, if you're distracted by other me first vehicle, or you know, wanting to attain nirvana myself vehicle, you're not distracted by it. You say, I'm listening to this teaching for the benefit of all sentient beings, to aid all living beings to attain Buddhahood. You said that, and you're not distracted by anything, but you're so concentrated. See, that's the concentration. And clothing those that strive for supreme enlightenment in the armor of non-perception of reality of separate entities. So this is just like listening in a state of meditative realization of the awareness of the emptiness of all things. But sentient beings who don't know this reality, they are lost in the thicket of what's right, what's wrong, incredibly, you know, dichotomizing everything, and then get caught up in the right and wrong, and he said, she said, that kind of thing. Instead of that, you're always meditating on the emptiness, and then radiating compassion to everyone. So if you do that, that's the highest wisdom. So during the teaching, you already practice the 6 paramitas. So the rest of the things, subject and definitions and etymology and the facts or things that you learned, or that's just augmenting all the 6 perfections. So that's the teaching itself, you know, the preparation we talked about, and then then that's the teaching. And the conclusion of the teaching, it says, having after finished the teaching, the preceptor must pray all his hearer to forgive the mistakes. Yes, so meaning when we do the dedication merit, the teacher, this is the role of the teacher. Teacher should not be presumptuous that all his teaching was remarkable, faultless, and flawless in terms of the coherentness of the subject and analogies and things. He should still beg forgiveness from the hearers if he has made any incoherent points, so on, which may have made. Pronounce the blessing that all might practice virtue attains. So he must do this talking with dedication. You conclude the teaching with dedication, merit. Dedication and merit means if there are any faults in the teaching, please forgive, apologize. If there's small merit, then offer it as a long life, good health, and spread of the Dharma, and peace in the world, and benefit to all sentient beings. So it's a pronounced blessing that all might practice virtue and attain supreme life, and seal all the seal of the Buddha. So it means dedication of merits in the name of the Triple Gem. And so these are talking about how, now they're talking about what the teaching is, who the teacher should be, what he hasn't discussed about the student yet, because we're still talking about the method of teaching, so how the teaching session should have a preparation, and then do the teaching, and then do the conclusion. Now, the next point is characteristic of method of study. Is here we have to distinguish character of the students. So now comes who the student are, and here what the student should be to qualify them as a student. The means of study, resource to, and the manner of studying. Of this, first is character of student. Student must be of three kinds, namely acute, mediocre, and feeble intellectual faculties. So this is talking about people's different levels of intelligence. The students of acute faculties, regard the first kind, we must show the defects that may be met with the student are to be avoided. And a definition student must be, there are various defects. There are 13, 1 and the 6 and the 3 defects are to be avoided. Yeah, so the 13 is the longest and 6 is the medium, 3 defects the shortest. 13 defects of the student is, Vakya Yukti of Vasubandhu says mentioned 6 methods of study that act as antidote against 13 defects. Later are as follows. So, which means the 13. Disturbing the teacher when he contemplates the subject to be expounded, the indecent behavior in general. 2, showing arrogance, being proud of one's own high birth and so on. So person is thinking of his own righteousness instead of focusing on the teaching. Showing no real desire to study. 3. 4 is becoming oppressed at heart by disagreeing views, because one can't agree with the teachings. One can't think, gosh, I can't handle this teaching. This is ridiculous. I don't want to listen to this crap. That kind of thing. Of course, you will lose. 5, having no regard for the teacher. 6, thinking how to make some objection in order to refute him, both out of disrespect. 7, want of reverence in having no consideration for the merits of the doctrine and of him that teaches it. 8, showing contempt for the doctrine and teacher by considering the former to be unconnected speech, and is regarded later by finding fault with him, his conduct, his outward appearance, way of expressing himself. So that's talking about picking on the faults. 9, using abusive language. 10, looking to profit or honor, meaning that what is it for me to learn from this and make a material gain from that. Not listening duly, being distracted or plunged in apathy and sleepiness. 12, not comprehending duly and having incorrect views of the meaning and the essence of the doctrine. 13, not paying the due attention, one's desire to study and efforts being too feeble. So these are the 13 defects, the longest one. 6 defects are, according to Vakya Yukti's, arrogance, want of faith, absence of desire to study, distraction, apathy, and lassitude. Such may be the defects of the student. Otherwise, we may distinguish defects of one's acts, absence of faith, disrespect, inappropriate thought, discord, and defects in apprehending. As concerns the defects in one's actions, such may be corporal, immoral behavior, oral or corporal, not making due efforts with both body and speech, and mental want of desire to study. The defects that consist of the inappropriate thoughts are to seek brawls and to think how to escape a controversy. The defects arising from discord are 5 in number: absence of reverence for the doctrine by not taking it to be path that leads to salvation, and for the word of it, considering such to be unconnected speech, etc. Disregard for the teacher by finding fault with him, his conduct, and the manner of teaching. Contempt for the teacher decent, and last of all, self-deprecation, in thinking oneself unable to understand the meaning of the doctrine and to act according to the latter. The defects in apprehending are likewise 5, apprehending wrongly, getting no clear conception of the meaning, and misunderstanding the words, disregarding the grammatical forms, and getting no full apprehension of the matter. 3. The 3 is the 3 defects. A vessel which is one intends to gather water. When it rains, they have 3 defects which render unable to exercise its function. It may be turned up downward or closed with a lid, the water having no entrance. So that's talking about distracted mind or pot that is turned upside down. 2, to be dirty so that the water when it enters will be polluted. So this is talking about bad intention. 3rd is absent-mindedness and having a leaky pot. May have hole, and through this be unable to retain the water. In the same way, the vessel that does not receive the rain of the doctrine, when such descent may be defective in 3 ways. The hearer may not listen at all, being distracted or plunge in apathy. The word of the doctrine will not reach him. So that's a fault of the pot that is upside down, meaning distracted. 2nd is one who does not listen to with due attention, the words of the doctrine, though they may reach one are in danger of being perverted. So one will hear them wrongly because of the intention. 6 kind of impediments. 3rd is if one is forgetful, that which one has heard will not be retained in memory. That's like a pot that is leaking. As an antidote against all this, the Lord says, study thoroughly and be attentive. Otherwise, we may compare that those do not study as it is prescribed. Be to patients who do not understand the direction of the physician, to those that understand them wrongly, and those who, though they have understood them, waste the remedy that is given to them. Again, they are like patients that do not eat when they should do so, like those who eat what is unwholesome, like those who, though they have eaten wholesome food, vomit back again. Therefore, the teacher that knows the character of the student must, if they become distracted, speak as to frighten them, in showing them the fatal consequence of their behavior as follows. The age of man that endures 100 years is reduced to the half by one night's sleep, and if we sleep by day, likewise, even this half will be diminished. And to such that are overpowered by sleep, he must, in order to arouse their attention, tell curious and amusing tales of the ass and the foal, the lion and the fox, and the elder man and the woman, the old woman and the thief, Parashurama, etc. So this talking about the teacher should make sure the students do not start of plunge into the defective way of listening to the teachings, and try to stay them what I call attention, intention, and retention. Because if you have good intention at the very beginning and throughout the teachings, so that is the pure the pot that is not soiled, that is not dirty. If you have good attention, so that is the pot that is not leaking, the pot that is not upside down, attention, because your attention is there. Every drop of rain will go into the pot. And the retention is that you're not forgetful. So you don't forget any of the teachings, particularly the most important points. Is like a pot that is not leaking. If the pot is leaking, can't retain anything. So that's why the intention, attention, and retention are the 3 qualities. If you have those 3 qualities, then the 3 defects, 6 defects, all the 13 defects, all of them will be avoided. And that means what we have seen, Buton Rinchen Drub very articulately explaining that who the teachers are, who the students are, and how they should listen. They both should learn to avoid the pitfalls and stay very focused. So listening and giving teachings are themselves 6 parameters. And so therefore there's enormous merit that may not be visible or cognizable while during the time or even later for many, many days or weeks. People may not see much, but the merit would be enormously much greater than you can imagine. If one conducts the art of teaching by the teacher, art of listening by the disciples, if everybody studies the very teachings of the Buddha, that he defined what Dharma is and the Shastra is, what are the actual texts, what are their commentaries, and having elucidated the merit of listening, merit of explaining, and then if people engages in this act of listening and teaching and studying, then we are engaging in the many of the 10 Dharma activities in one very session. So with this we will conclude here, everyone. Thank you for your attention. Of course, this particular chapter, part of the book that we have read thus far, covers the merits of study and listening, and particularly merit in study and listening of Mayan and teachings. Then he identifies what the Dharma is, what the definition of Dharma is, and what are the texts, what are the scriptures, who are the particular luminaries and authors of some of those, compiling those texts together. So we begin to become a little bit familiarized with the names of the texts and the subjects, and then it talks about the characteristics of the teaching, how the teaching heals and creates peace in the mind of those who are troubled in sadness and hurt or pain or desire or craving. They will feel the medicine of the Dharma. Listening and reading and thinking of it will teach them how to recover from the illness and not to fall sick again. And then you're talking about the actual identity of the teacher and student who should participate in this joint effort of honoring the Dharma delightfully as 6 parameters in action each time you sit and listen and explain the teachings. So with this, we will now do the dedication merits, and so here we will. This ends this particular term. We will have a break as usual term. We'll resume again a new term and continue. But since we have just opened and consecrated this new temple, there will be generally a new schedule of the center's activities. Will be outlined in our website soon before the new term begins. Much of the weekly teachings, such as the calm abiding on Tuesday nights and the Rongdong Buddhist philosophy study on Thursday night, will continue at the same time, but others will change slightly after some consultation, and so we will inform you in due course. Of course, we are here to do the 4-day retreat on Ngondro preliminary practice. What is an auspicious thing to start for the temple having been consecrated only a few days ago by His Holiness, and now people can really lay good foundation, not only for themselves but for the Sangha as a whole. And we will no longer be affected by the COVID anymore, because we don't have COVID, and we will not be continuing the tradition of doing in things without people. Now we'll encourage everyone to come in person, attend as many sessions as possible, and of course those people who are immobile and are from interstate and overseas, of course, most welcome to join online. But those in Canberra, we really truly request people to come in person and make the place fully occupied on the seat and practice. Even though the COVID has changed many things, and people are and also due to the terrible war that's going, is maybe making people a little bit harder to travel for various reasons. But we should still try our best to assemble, because assembly is called when people assembled. Because people are not assembling, it's not assembly. So with that, I will now do the dedication. Mary, thank you very much, everyone. Whatever merit because the lovers to hold the Mayana Dij courage and Jushin as a man the Badra de life following oh the Hezamba Ashadege oh the Mere Salam Bodhi Jeda Teba Vedana Yadanza Vera Svembo Medengr Krele Vedade
Thank you, Rinpoche, on behalf of all your students, both here in person and online, for this term of teachings on Buton's history. Thank you to our committee, technical team, and our patrons and sponsors for helping to make these teachings possible. Thank you, everyone, also for your attendance and company. As you know, we follow the academic year, so we'll be reconvening after a few weeks. Please keep an eye on our website. And we'll continue with this text as we haven't even yet begun the main section. And just as a last-minute advertisement, as Rinpoche mentioned, this long weekend we have a Ngondro retreat led by Rinpoche and one of our senior students. So if you haven't made any concrete plans or are available for some of the weekend, please look into that as a very good way to spend your long weekend. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.